Welcome to the Market Bull podcast, where we dive into the stories shaping Australia's finance, tech, and resources landscape. Each episode, we will be sitting down with ASX-listed executives, industry experts, emerging explorers, and innovators to unpack the latest trends driving investor attention. Whether you're a retail investor, market watcher, or just simply curious about the companies making headlines, this is your place to hear Australia's next generation of growth stories. I'm Matthew Craig, and this is the Market Bull podcast, powered by themarketbull.com.au, your home for small cap coverage. Hi, I'm Matthew Craig, and you're listening to the Market Bull podcast. Joining me today is a very special guest. We've got Jim Penman, the founder and owner of Jim's Group. I think it's fair to say one of Australia's most recognisable franchise brands. Today, Jim's Group has expanded far beyond mowing, including more than 50 divisions across the globe, covering multiple services. Now the network has over 5,000 franchisees, making it the largest franchise organisation in the Southern Hemisphere. Welcome, Jim.
Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Now, we might start from the very beginning in that famous origin story of the $24 mower.
Well, actually, it even goes back further than that. I've been gardening since I was 8 years old. I did it as a kid, and I did it as a student. I left school in 1969. In 1970, I started a very small part-time gardening business, and that went all through my career, doing my undergraduate, then a PhD in history. And then in 1982, I intended to be an academic, but in 1982, I was completely flamed out. My academic career was gone. My thesis was rejected, so I decided to make my part-time business full-time, and that was where the $24 came in. That was just my marketing budget.
Yeah, okay. What was it about gardening that, you love so much?
I just like being outdoors. It's a fun job. To me, it's one of the best. I mean, that's why I do it as a hobby now. I actually spend quite a few hours at the weekend, digging and fertilizing and planting and weeding and stuff. To me, it's just a great job. So it was a pretty obvious thing to do. As a student, it was a great job because got me outside. It was physical. It was quite well paid by comparison with other student jobs. So, yeah. I like it.
No, fantastic. So at what point did it sort of like shift from, hobby and side income into what you thought might be a real business idea?
Well, in 1982, as I said, when I realised I wasn't going to be an academic, that's what I'd always thought I was going to do. And then I realised that wasn't going to happen. So then it had to be. Look, it was basically by default. I really intended to build a business of some kind to fund my research, which I wanted to continue, which was going to cost millions of dollars a year, which is a broke student. It's a pretty tall ask. So I needed to be successful in business in some way. I didn't think it would be lawn mowing. It was just the only thing I knew how to do. And I tried a whole lot of other things on the side, and none of them worked out. And the little, originally part-time lawn mowing business was the one that actually worked.
Mm-hmm. What was it about lawn mowing that, I guess, what was the biggest driver of the early growth?
I'm naturally a fairly ambitious person, so that you put me into anything, I'll try and figure out a way to do it better. Like unloading the dishwasher, for example. To me, it's logical. How can you do it in the least possible time? And even if it's just saving a few seconds. Any job you give me, answering emails, I'll have a system to do it, and I'll just do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So that's what you do when you're running a business. And it's the secret. It's the great source of the whole thing. It's not having some brilliant, incredible idea. It's thousands of little tiny ideas. Like when you're mowing a lawn, how do you save yourself one step by putting the grass into a grass bag? How do you remove things from there? How do you do the edges most of it? How do you get between jobs in the quickest possible manner? How do you amaze and delight your clients? And how can you do it more time effectively and cost effectively? It's just a lot of questions. And then when you actually start, like I did, I was, mowing lawns for myself, and then I started to get a lot of work because I give pretty good service. So I started putting on people like subcontractors, and then I shifted to building up and selling lawn mowing rounds. And then, under the fear of competition from an existing franchising company, I decided to franchise in self-defense. It wasn't so much any great leap of decision. It was just a whole lot of tiny things that you keep on improving.
So it's really just all about streamlining and efficiency then, it sounds like.
Yeah. You've got two things you've got to do. You've got to work out how to amaze your clients, make them really happy, and you've got to work out how to do it cost effectively, time effectively. That's your basic core idea. Now, whether what I'm doing today is rather different, but it's the same kind of idea. How do I look after my franchisees better? How do I look after my clients better? And every day I'm coming up with ideas about how to improve on that. I just had a meeting this morning with some of my IT managers, and we're going through changes to the software that can actually give better customer service, better support to franchisees. It's just an everyday process, constant drive. Better service, more efficient.
No, absolutely. I think it's quite interesting because obviously the landscape today in the mid-2020s is a very different place to it was in the 1980s. And for someone maybe starting today with very little capital, like where is the leverage?
There is, if you're talking about the service industry, which is the one I understand, if you're talking about high tech and stuff, out of my area, I don't understand it, I don't know it. But if you're talking about the service industry, the opportunities are extraordinary. In fact, probably even greater, because people today, compared with, how long was it, 40 years ago, are a lot more lazy. And it's a lot easier to pick up work than it used to be. We've had more than 200,000 unserviced leads in the past year. We just can't cope with it. We've got an entire division that's based on selling our surplus clients, which is to do with screening people and getting to respond and so forth. But it's such a major problem. I mean, we never had that in the early days. So it's actually very, very easy to find work if you look after customers extremely well.
No, absolutely. I guess what's almost like sort of the biggest barrier to entry these days, and it's the sort of, as someone kind of about to, entering my early 30s, looking to kind of get into the, into the housing market. I saw one of your discussions recently on this topic that you were quite passionate about. And obviously, my dad, very well off now, but, he was able to pay off our family home, in a few years of, hard work. Whereas like these days, it can be something where, right, you've got to make the decision, right, I've got to get in at some point. But then it's also the flip side of, well, at that point, then I own a quarter of the house, but, really the bank owns the house. And, a lot of people then spend the next, 20 years, trying to pay off, these repayments and your mortgage and, trying to do that with, your own business. It's quite high risk.
Well, it's not a risk exactly. It's just that, look, one of the things about me that's been helpful is I'm a very stingy person. I don't like spending on anything. I will still wear my clothes. I buy my shoes my pants from Kmart, and I'll wear things till they get holes in them. I've always been. In fact, the first time I ever bought a new car in my life was 3 years ago, and I was 70 years old. I just never spend a lot of money. So what people do, a mistake they make is they live too high. They want to stay, they want leisure, they want nice trips, they want to eat out a lot, they want a nice home, all the rest of it, the nice car, these kind of things too. Whereas what I've always done is invested in my business and live very lean by comparison with my income. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. I've seen it again and again. They think they need to impress people by looking successful, but it's not really what counts. It's what you do for customers. Again, I wouldn't understand something like real estate. You probably have to wear a nice suit or something. Maybe you do in that area. But you're talking about services. People don't care. They want great service, and they want it. Yeah, they just want great service. And if you give them great service, they'll pay quite well. I mean, we suggest our franchisees look at a minimum rate of $70 an hour. This is for doing things like cleaning and gardening and handyman work, nothing extraordinary, and a lot of them make a lot more than that. So it's not that difficult. The hardest thing is getting going, actually, and that's why, for example, the way I did it, I started part-time. So by the time I went full-time, I knew the business very, very well. See, in 1982, I've been running a business for like 12 years. So I'd really progressed and started gardening, and then I went mowing and put my prices up, and then got a brush cutter, and then just figured out how to do things better. So when I went full time, I knew what I was doing. For people who can't start part time, then something like a franchise like ours is very helpful. Because, for example, if you look at statistics, people who start in a service business by themselves, between 90 and 95% will drop out in the first year because it's hard to get going when you don't understand it. With us, our dropout rate is about 12%. So because we provide training and leads and support, and people can go independent if they wish. We don't really stop them. It's not difficult to leave gyms, but it's not hard. Right? It's just a lot easier than people think if you focus on the basics.
No, definitely. Well, you're speaking to someone who still drives around in his first car, my Mitsubishi Lancer, must be 12 years old now. Depreciable assets. I tend to avoid to spend too much on them.
Yeah, and don't borrow any more than you need to, apart from housing. And even then, buy a low-cost house to start with, or even to start a house for rental. You can get into the market. You can go off into the bush somewhere and you can buy something quite low cost, like in a regional centre, which has a decent rental return. You get into the market that way. You can do it. You just got to be prepared to work hard and not spend too much on fripperies.
No, absolutely. So back to gyms, I think you touched on this briefly, but so when did you know that franchising was going to be the right model for gyms, and how did that come about?
I had a business in the 1980s building up and selling lawn mowing rounds, with just a few subbies and stuff. It done me okay, got me out of debt, got a house, got a started a family, so it was all right. And then this company called VIP came in from Adelaide, and they were already franchised. They had about 250 franchisees at that time. And quite frankly, they terrified me. I thought these guys would crush me because I didn't have anything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know I knew nothing about franchising. It's actually, apart from what I read about McDonald's. So I actually rang them up, the state manager, and said, look, I don't really want to compete with you guys because you're so successful. What if I just work with you to build up your customer base? And they said no to that. Not surprising in retrospect. So I just basically, I thought I might as well try what I'm to do. And so that year they had a franchising expo. That was 1988 in the old exhibition buildings in Melbourne. And I went in and I just went up to the stand and I said, look, tell me about VIP, I'm interested. And fortunately, he didn't ask me why I was interested because I probably would have told him. But he just gave me all this information and gave me this brochure, which I really took apart every word of it. Even the way it was bound, I didn't understand the heat seal binding was. And then the state manager came and kicked me off the stand. He said, that's Jim Penman, don't tell him anything else. But I went away and I thought, well, these guys have got something here. It's a good system. I can understand why somebody would do this. But I reckon maybe I can do something that would be more successful for franchisees. Because there were things about that system I didn't like the fact that you could take customers off a franchisee without their knowledge. Those kinds of things too. I just didn't like that. So I thought, okay, I'll try my own. So took me 9 months basically arguing with lawyers. Most of them telling me that I'm being too nice. I was giving my franchisees too many rights, too much power. I launched in mid-1989, and at the time somebody asked me how many I might have one day, and I said, look, maybe 100 if it goes well. I don't know if it will, but maybe 100.
So which system or decision do you think had the biggest impact on scaling nationally?
It wasn't so much a decision, it was just, it's like I said, it's not, people think of it, you're just puddling along, pushing a lawnmower, and you think, why don't I franchise? And suddenly you're a millionaire. It doesn't work like that. You just try different things all the time. You just keep on trying. By my nature, I will always try and do things better and faster and more. It's just my temperament. So I started doing it, and I started looking at what was working and what wasn't working. See, for example, one of the things I found in the very early days is that there was a big difference in success between the franchisees who lived near me and those who lived further away. And it took me quite a while to realize the difference was meetings. People who were near used to come in and meet in my lounge room. Those who were further away didn't get that. And I didn't think that was something that was so crucial, but I quickly realized that it was. So when I started getting people in other areas, like in other states especially, to become franchisors and run their own meetings and support, then they started to grow too. So it's just decisions like that. We had systems for passing out leads, and that involved asking each franchisee what suburbs they wanted to cover, when they were available. We had a whole bunch of staff doing things manually, which was super, super expensive. Now, it gave great service, but the cost of it was more than we were charging in fees. So it was very, we were sort of like almost like a Ponzi scheme, because we were making money from selling franchises, but not from the ongoing fees at all. So then I automated, because obviously you had to. So I got somebody in who actually managed to do these things. So you actually have the staff spending their time actually passing out work, and the franchisees can book into this thing we call a blackboard. It's still called a blackboard, even though it's not black anymore, but it used to be an actual blackboard. So I just kept on improving it. And I looked at ways of improving customer service, and how do you drop the level of complaints down, and later in surveys and stuff. And we currently spend several $1 million a year on software development. So it's just an ongoing process every day, the same question. I give every one of my franchisees my direct phone number and email address. I mean, heaven help anybody who tries to ring me. They get my phone number, they get a very rude response. But my franchisees are allowed to call me anytime, daytime, evenings, after hours, public holidays. Oh my God, around me Christmas Day. That's allowed. Now, and what they do is I can help them, but they're also telling me I've got a problem. And then what can we do? How can we help you? What can we do different? What do we need to change to our system? How do we do it better? That's that relentless progress in improving what you do. And it's not one big thing. It's thousands and thousands of little things. Biggest mistake people make, they think there's some one idea. It's not the case. It's lots of tiny ideas. And same with franchisees too. Same thing. The ones that are successful are not the ones who are the smartest or the best educated or anything else. They're the ones that look at what they're doing and say, how can I improve? Or even listen to what they're told and accept that. The ones that tend to fail are the ones that say, no, I know better. Even if I'm failing, I know better than you. And they won't listen. And they keep on saying the same thing. No, it's your fault. You know, you're not, all your leads are garbage leads and so forth. And we say, well, bring them back quicker. And approach it. No, your leads are garbage. You've got to make it nice, Jim. Your leads are all rubbish. That's your problem. That's your problem. You've got to change things. I don't have to change, because what I'm doing is fantastic. You must change your system. And they're the ones that fail.
No, absolutely. And it sort of sounds like, it's not that one decision. It's not that one thing. It's just a gradual thing. It doesn't happen overnight. And it feels like everyone's chasing that sort of get-rich-quick scheme.
Yes. And that's the greatest thing. I do one thing. I very strong urge. You never buy anything on the basis that somebody else will pay more. That is speculation. That is craziness, and that is a scheme for being ripped off. Like the stock market, for example. People try and ride the stock market, but basically they fail. If you're going to go on the stock market, you should buy index funds. So don't think of any other way to do it. Just buy an index funds, because unless you're someone like Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett, you don't know enough to beat the market. People out there trying that, so you go for index funds. It's that sort of thing. Get away from the get-rich-quick schemes. People get conned all the time because somebody will say, oh, here you can get 25% per annum. Well, that's just rubbish. If it was that good, they wouldn't need you. So you've got to be suspicious. The things like cryptocurrency, I'm so much against it. People talk about all the money they can make, and some people do, but a lot more lose too. So speculation is bad. Hard work, dedicated work, focusing on whatever you do and just gearing it up, making it more efficient, doing it more, just keep on going.
No, absolutely. You're looking at someone who got their hand caught in the crypto cookie jar. So I definitely learnt the hard way through that. But no, absolutely. It's just got to be built on hard work.
To me, there's a moral point to this too. You should never invest in anything where there's no real social value to what you're doing. That is a very fundamental principle. If you are just riding the stock market to try and build, that's a speculation. That's not really making anybody money. Now, investing in a stock market like in an index fund, that supports the economy. But all these financial manipulations and things people do, the only people who can become rich by doing that is people who are managing other people's money. So they take, like with the 2008 subprime crisis, where people lost the money. The people who actually did all the financial manipulations, they did pretty well. But the people that they duped, the banks and the rest of it, they were the ones that lost out. So there's too many dodgy schemes around, people just trying to make a buck, and they think that's their primary thing. Your primary goal should never be in business to make a buck, because if you do, you're not creating anything worthwhile, and you're mostly going to be the sucker yourself. Your primary aim is to say, how can I do something worthwhile? How can I do it better? And we're very good at franchising. As I said to you, somebody starts a Jim's franchise, there's an 88% chance they'll still be in business. Most of our franchisees, great majority, are making good or satisfactory income. Quite a few have become multi-millionaires. We keep on focusing on that. We actually put franchises as top priority. So if we can make them successful, then it spreads. And I was talking to a guy last night, I was ringing, he was a 10-year veteran. I make a point of finding people on big anniversaries. And he just talked about how he got in. Because he had a friend who was doing it. The friend was making money. The friend said, why don't you come and work with me? So he did. He was actually a mining engineer. But he went and worked with his friend, saw how much money he was making, great lifestyle, so he bought a franchise. And it's 10 years later.
No, it does sound like that kind of open communication and network, especially running a franchise. And I guess that kind of leads to my next question of sort of, what's the hardest part of supporting thousands of individual operators?
Finding good people. That's the hardest thing of anything. If you want to launch a major business as a franchisee or as an independent contractor, the hardest part, apart from getting started, is finding good people to work with you. And that's always been the biggest challenge for me. Now, we have a lot of good people through the franchising network. We tend to recruit from within. We get successful franchisees to become franchisors or run new divisions. That's the main way. I am not particularly good at picking people, I have to say. I wish I was, but I'm not. So I've had tremendous problems. I got some great staff members, but they tend to come from the grassroots of the business. So that's the hard thing. It's if you can find great people and you're constantly driving to provide better service, you just tend to become very, very good at what you do. It's just natural, because the market is incredibly soft. It really is. Service is not that good at all. You're up competing with people who don't do the job very well, who don't return calls to clients, who don't turn up when they say they do, who don't do a good job. And that's so common in this industry that when you go in and you do everything possible to look after a client, you can get quite spectacular results, and people don't mind paying for it. We're a very rich country.
No, definitely. Especially if you were someone who kind of saw the best in people as well, that would probably be quite a hard thing to, be able to pick, the good eggs from the bad sort of thing. And I guess then that leads into, how do you maintain, kind of your brand standards, when everyone is self-employed? Is it, a very similar thing of just trusting that they're good people?
No, it's way beyond that. We have a whole series of systems. For example, we start by screening people. We have a very strong culture that says you must not take somebody on who's likely to succeed, or unless you're convinced they're going to succeed. That's unusual for the industry, but it's the start of it. Then you have very intensive training. The first training session, we do a 2-day generic training course. The first training session I run, it runs for 1.5 hours, and I hit customer service again and again and again and again. And I talk about all the systems that we use. So they're trained really intensively, propagandized. And then we do things like we record complaints, and we have systems to dealing with too many complaints. And we have a survey system where we survey customers after 10 days, and about 30% will reply. Now we feed that back into the system that gets you information about what's going on. Just as an example, that phone call that went on just now, there's a franchisee in one of our divisions who has a horrific level of complaints. And just yesterday, I've taken him off leads. He just keeps on getting complaints. He tries to get them deleted because he says, I fixed up the client. There's just too many. There's just too many complaints. Now he's ringing me to try and persuade me to let him back on the system. But unless I'm going to be convinced that he's going to change his tune, he's not going to get any more leads at all. And he can go independent, do whatever he wants. We won't stop him. But you can't keep on taking leads if you let clients down. Now I am personally involved in that. I actually monitor complaints. Any franchisee who's been warned, breached for poor service, any complaint comes to me and I follow it up, which is what happened in this particular case. I'll get involved in talking to a client. If a client rings the office the second time and hasn't had a proper answer, that goes to me and I will correspond with the client. So I am personally directly involved in customer service. Even though we turn over probably $1 billion a year, I'm still very intensely involved in all of that. And we drive it and we drive it and drive it. Even our fee system is designed to reduce complaints. We charge a flat fee plus a lead fee. So every lead that goes out has a small fee attached to it, usually about $20. But we do that because we find that if we charge a lead fee separately, instead of just charging a single flat fee, franchisees are less likely to take work they don't want because it costs them. So there's a whole stack of things that's going on all the time. And then there's coaching from the franchisor. And there's meetings talking about customer service. And then we do videos with franchisees who are good at customer service talking to others about how they, why they're successful. And we encourage franchisees to look at that. So there's a whole system. And what we've found is that the level of complaints has dropped dramatically through the life, not just in one go. Like when we started off, pre-franchise, I would get about 100 leads for every 100 complaints. It was pretty bad, really, my subbies. Shortly into the franchise, we started monitoring complaints, and we found out that it was down about 5%, 100 leads, 5 complaints. Well, that's better, but it's not good enough. So we started then monitoring complaints, and then we started putting in systems, and then we put the survey system in place, and then we did other follow-up systems. It's now down to a fraction of a percent. So since pre-franchise days, our complaints are less than 1% of what they used to be. And we've got some changes taking place with new software we're developing, which I reckon will cut that in half. Because it's going to be things like it'll give a feedback to the office if they don't call clients and stuff, and there's certain kinds of messaging system and stuff. So that's being developed, several $1 million worth that's going out now, being developed now and be released. So there's a stack of different things that we're doing all the time. We're just constantly driving for better service. And as the service gets better, so the leads come in. And the franchisees who give great service tend to make much better money and tend to stick around longer. So you keep on pressuring them and training them and showing them and just relentlessly driving to do it better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shifting maybe just to more of a general business question, what would be your best advice for keeping and maintaining strong business relationships over the long term?
You've got to care about people you're dealing with. That's very important. I have a very emotional relationship with my franchisees. I really worry about them. It upsets me if they don't do well. It's just very strong. I try and look after my staff. Now, sometimes you make very hard decisions. If people aren't doing very well or become overstaffed in an area, you've got to make hard decisions, but you try and look after them, treat them decently, treat them with respect, listen to their views. We provide things like free fruit, or because we've got solar panels, we give them free charging for their electric cars, things like that. So you try and look after them and give opportunities to grow and progress. It's important, obviously, to look after your clients. They're part of you. It's also important to look after suppliers. Now, we put in last year a change to the franchise contract, which was proposed by the franchisees, actually, that change to the manual that says a franchisee could be breached if he fails to pay a supplier. Because suppliers are important too, because if you don't look after your suppliers, they're not going to look after you, not give you the best deal, and they're not going to provide you with what you need. So all your stakeholders, you've got to be interested in how they're doing. Everybody's got to succeed.
No, absolutely. It sounds like one, you've got to have a quality business there, but then also two, it's just as important to be personable and probably just do things the right way.
Yes, but sometimes you have to be very harsh. I mean, I'm pretty tough when it comes to customers. I mean, I don't swear at anybody or try not to yell at them or anything, but you let down my franchisees or my customers, you're certainly going to hear it from me. And customers and franchisees get very upset too. Like when I deny them leads because then their service is not good. And they think I'm really mean and horrible, and they say I'm causing them to lose sleep and they're getting mental health issues and stuff. But for heaven's sake, I'm not compromising on that. You've got to look after your customers. It's not just affecting you, it's affecting other franchisees because you're hurting the brand. Every time you let down a customer, that's one negative out there in the community, and they're going to tell people, and they're going to rely on that, and they're not going to want to bring us for other services. So you've got to care about people, but you've also got to be tough enough. And sometimes it comes to the stage of saying you can't stay with us, like this guy who's been trying to ring me. You just got to go because you can't do things our way.
No, yeah, you have to conform in that sense. So maybe just like sort of that entrepreneurship path versus your more traditional path. What would be your advice for someone who wants to maybe break away and start their own business?
Okay, starting your own business is great. I certainly recommend it. It's flexibility, it's freedom, it's the ability to take time off when you need it, to see your kids growing up, there's no roof, there's no ceiling. If you're an entrepreneur, there's no upper limit, there's no boss telling you get to here and no further because this is a family company or because you haven't got the right qualifications. It's just totally open. So to me, it's wonderful, but at the same time, it's to some people, it's very scary because you've got no regular paycheck. You've got nobody responsible for it. You fail, you fail. So you have to be a certain kind of person to want to be in business for yourself. And a lot of people just haven't got that. They'd rather have a steady paycheck, even a low one, and know than be out there making their own decisions. So, but it's wonderful. I find it very exciting. I mean, I am 73 years old and I don't ever intend to retire because I just love business so much. It's just so much fun and it's meaningful. Why would you want to sit around and, in a luxury resort and sink martinis or something like that? I mean, it's just, to me, it's boring as all hell. I love what I do. Got a great life.
Absolutely. It's a great way of looking at it. Maybe just like to, kind of university these days, and I know there's been a major shift even since I was there 5-10 years ago. Does university really prepare people for business ownership these days?
No. Look, bluntly speaking, if you want to go and work for some big financial firm or company or something like that, or whatever, you probably need a degree of some time, and these days probably a master's at least, because they won't look at you. In terms of actually teaching you anything of value, stuff all. I mean, nothing. I mean, I did a degree in history, which is obviously about as far from anything practical as you could possibly think. But even degrees in sort of management and finance and stuff, in terms of being an entrepreneur, it's garbage. Actually, you're much better off doing a part-time gardening business or going to work for McDonald's or something like that. You'll learn a lot more, in my view. The courses are rubbish. They're actually taught by people who have never done it. They've never been in business. See, if you come to our training course, we have a number of speakers and they're all very heavily monitored because every franchisee, every session, it rates every speaker. So if somebody not getting a good response, they don't last as speakers. But the other side, everybody who does it has been there and done that. We are not talking something from a book. We're talking from real life personal experience. And when you're talking to your franchisor, there's somebody who's also done what you've done. So when a franchisor wants to become a franchisor, the first thing I do is look at their customer service rating. And the second thing I said, what are you turning over? How many staff have you got? So just yesterday, a franchisee approached me about a divisional role. And I said, okay, how many staff you got? What are you turning over? He's turning over $100,000 a year, which is below average. So he's a good operator. He's got good customer ratings, but I said, you're just not there yet. You've got to learn what you do. When you're making, let's say, $5,000 a week, $250,000 a year, then perhaps we could talk about it. So I don't have much faith in. I don't think tertiary education, for the most part, is particularly good value. It gives you a competitive edge, maybe, but in terms of its value to society, I think basically, apart from a few things like medicine and engineering, stuff all value. And I include things like finance degrees and management degrees and all this kind of rubbish. They're all terrible.
Yeah, I think what's like really hit home for me recently, I've kind of realised you don't realise how quickly it shifts between generations, and I was probably part of the last generation that went through my whole school learning and then university without the help of AI. And if I'm being honest, I am probably someone who, if I was going through school and I could use this tool to help get me to, where I need to be without maybe putting in, or like doing the learning, I probably would take that shortcut, to be honest. And some people won't, some people will do it properly, but I imagine a large majority might. And I think my concern would be, like with where AI is going, is it's fantastic and it helps me and it helps everyone. But in terms of the ability to, sort of critically think and, could it be a problem where people sort of, become reliant upon it?
Yeah. I think the other thing about AI too is that it's tending to kill white collar jobs. the jobs that used to be the stable end of a tertiary degree. There's a wonderful book called The Case Against Education. I think a guy, Brian Kaplan, some name like that, which actually talks about this whole issue and basically comes to the conclusion that past about 10th grade, education actually in practical terms teaches you nothing. What it is a signalling device. It says, I have enough ability and self-discipline to get through this meaningless course of work. That's about all it says. It doesn't matter what it is. And so when your employer is faced with 50 applicants, you can just toss them into the bin if they haven't got some degree, because otherwise you can't test 50 people. You can't judge them. So how do you do it? That's the value of it. It's just a competitive thing. It's like you're in a cinema or a concert or something like that, and everybody gets to their feet. Well, nobody's better off because you get up to see better, but everybody else gets up to see better too. So you're all not benefiting from it. Well, education is the same thing. We get more and more education, but in actual fact, standards of literacy are going down. Graduates from university these days are less literate than those who left high school a generation or two back.
Yeah, that's exactly where it kind of feels like it's going. And I guess that's where, going back to that entrepreneurship versus the traditional path, the barriers to entry are sort of, so large in some respects to any, finance job or, the like, to where, when people are out there paying for a university degree, you can be out there, as you said, doing that part-time or even, starting full-time, business, and, going from there might actually be the better path for a lot of people.
I think so too. I think a good job. I think anybody, I would say, get yourself some work, get yourself a job of some kind as early as possible, starting your school years. My youngest, my 16-year-old, works at McDonald's, and I'm delighted actually. I don't like them to eat the food; it's disgusting and unhealthy. But it's an organisation. It's great. They train people very well. Hasn't seen much of it yet, but it's only been recent. But it's good training. One of my top franchisors came from that. He was a high school dropout, left school at 16 or whatever, and went to work for McDonald's. He's running the entire mowing division in Australia in his early 30s. He's a multi-millionaire. Just great character. But McDonald's didn't hurt. Also, when he employed people, he used McDonald's contacts to find people. The people he'd worked with or for in McDonald's, he actually recruited them to come and work for him.
Wow. So maybe just, what are some of the characteristics, do you think, of the franchisees who succeed versus, those that might fail?
Just a relentless determination to do better. It's the same thing that I've got. Look, I am not a particularly capable people in so many ways. I don't understand finance very well. I've got pretty poor people skills. I can offend people without knowing. My wife says I've got borderline Asperger's, and I'm so bad at doing most things. I'm not even good at picking people or anything, but it's amazing. Even if you're very imperfect and foolish in so many ways, if you constantly look at what you do and have the humility to say, hey, I'm not perfect, I can do better and better and better, you might surprise yourself. If anybody had told me that I have 5,500 franchisees one day, I'd say, what are you smoking? Come on, this is ridiculous. You just don't have that kind of ability. But it's just relentless. I mean, being hardworking, you've got to work hard, and you should control your spending. But look to improve. That's really what I say, and be passionate about customers. You shouldn't look at a customer from the point of view of simply what money you can get for them. What you should be doing is looking at how you can amaze them, how you can delight them. If you just go to people all the time and say, how can I amaze them? How can I delight them? Your customers will tend to come in more and more and more. And then you can start charging more. Like there's a lady called Poppy, actually, who's one of my favourite franchisees. She actually just started yesterday cleaning my house because our other cleaner left. This is from Jim's Cleaning, of course. And she came in with a crowd of people, and she's already doing another house for me. But she's just wonderful. She's got about 6 people working for her, mostly friends and so forth. And they charge me $440, which is a fairly good price, and we'll probably get that charged every fortnight or so. But she's just good at what she does. She even bought me some nice, because she's Thai, she bought some nice Thai dishes as well, which is a very good touch. She's just a lovely lady, and she's got plenty of work for her team. The only reason she can't grow is because of lack of staff. But she's doing very well for herself, and us too, because she's got a great rating as well.
Yeah, you were really just speaking to me on that one. I think we're all on the spectrum somewhere. Back to Jim's group, and like, where do you think the growth is coming from next? Because I mean, you mentioned before there's some new technology that's going to come in and improve the operation. Where do you think Jim's group's heading?
My aim is just to do better and better. People often ask me what my goals are, like how many franchises like do I want, 6,000 or 10,000 or 2. I never have a numerical goals. I have two goals. I want a goal where every single franchisee is completely happy with their experience with us, and I want a goal where every single client is happy with their experience with us. Now, those are not possible goals, but they're the aim. They're the North Star, the Southern Cross, whatever, that guides you as to where you want to go. If you do those things and you do them reasonably cost effectively, you will just do well. It's almost magic the way that it works. So that's my goal. I just want to be better at what we do. And sometimes with the new software, for example, that we're just starting to put out now, it can be giant leaps, but this has been several years in the planning and execution and so forth. But nothing extraordinarily different. In fact, one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn is because one of your dangers being entrepreneur is you think because you're good at one thing, you're going to be good at something else. And it's just not usually the truth. I've tried so many different businesses that have lost me money, like I've tried trade exchange and computer shop and mower shop and holiday resort and factory making fiberglass trailers and a psychology institute. I mean, you just keep on going on and on, and they've all lost money. But the thing that I understand, which is the service business, particularly home service business, because we know what we're doing. Look, it's like, I don't know, two of my greatest heroes in business are Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, I mentioned before, Berkshire Hathaway. And what's interesting about those guys is that they're very humble men. Like Warren Buffett's one of the smartest investors in the history of the planet. But he says things like, it's outside my area of competence. I don't understand technology. I just don't understand it, so I'm not going to invest in it. I mean, this is an extraordinarily successful man, but he makes that kind of comments. He'll also talk about his failures quite openly. If you listen to some of his talks, he talks about where he's failed. I did that wrong. I hung on to Berkshire Hathaway, their mills far too long. I did this wrong. And he just talks about it. He's a very humble man. Interesting also, he lives a very pedestrian lifestyle. He lives in the same house for several decades and stuff. He doesn't live his wealth. And he's giving away his money to worthy causes. So he's an amazing guy. That to me is a model of business.
No, there's definitely something to that, and the way he sort of goes about it. And I think there's always going to be trial and error, and you're always going to make mistakes. I suppose it's
of course.
How do you can you take that on board, and can you say, right, look, I did that wrong, and rather than one of the examples you were using where he said it's always someone else's fault. Saying, okay, this is where I went wrong, and I'm going to learn from this and not make that mistake, and, you'll be better off for it.
Yeah, keep on learning. I mean, I'm 73. I've learned more in the past 10 years than at any time in the whole of my life, really. Just keep on learning, keep on doing things and getting better. As long as I don't go senile, I'll keep on learning. I would read probably on average or listen to at least 2 books a week. I'm always learning new things. Not business. Actually, I'm listening to one called Upholding China. Other ones I might do to do with history or to do with evolutionary psychology or something like that. I mean, I just read all the time and always learning more things and reading magazines like The Economist and so forth, and just keep on learning and growing and developing and learning from experience. It's fun. I don't know why anybody would not want to do that. It just makes life really interesting.
I think that's a great point. And look, I won't say I read books, but that's where podcasts have actually come in for me, because that's been a massive thing that in the last few years I would consume upwards of probably 10 podcasts a week while I'm working, while I'm driving. And it's just the same point of, taking in information, learning, growing. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, you did right, exactly right. Just like a talk like this too. And I'm saying some pretty pedestrian things people have heard before, but maybe it just sticks in. One of the things you've got to do too is you've got to propagandize yourself a bit. if you listen to things long enough, even if mentally speaking, listen to it once doesn't get in, but if you keep on listening to the same things again and again and again and again, eventually it becomes part of your way of thinking. It's like diet, for example. It's another area I'm interested in. Now, my diet now is radically different to what it was, say, 10, 20 years ago. Really very different. And part of the reason for that is because I listen to a lot of books and read a lot of books about health and diet. And it's got to the stage where I just naturally tend to have more fruit and vegetables than I used to. And I just don't eat other things as much. And it's not really you always knew that it was not a good idea, but if you constantly listen to things and you hear things and you read things that say the same message, it sort of sinks in, becomes part of your way of thinking. There's wonderful books like Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits and those kind of books too about how you change your life. You don't just do one, you get lots of them. You keep on learning and listening and don't worry too much about learning everything that comes in, but just let it sink in and become part of your way of thinking.
Absolutely. We'll just end on a little bit of a fun one where I think, judging from some of your answers today, I think I know exactly where you'd be going this, but I was wondering if you had to start again with $24 today, what business would you look at launching?
Mowing lawns.
Absolutely, yeah. Something outdoors.
Well, I see the potential far earlier. And I get into technology a lot earlier too, and I'd learn my lessons and avoid some of the mistakes and the bad issues and stuff, and I'd be way ahead. It would take me half the time to get back here, I reckon, if I knew what I was doing. That's the hardest thing, just finding out what to do, and you're making all the mistakes in the world. Absolutely, yeah. It's a fantastic area. I think I've been very lucky, actually. I just happen to love gardening, and it happens to be a way in. Too many people have got prejudice against manual work, and that's a great opportunity. Because everyone wants to sit in front of a computer and be like a manager with a suit and tie and I'm superior because I'm not getting my hands dirty and stuff. I love having calloused hands. I just do. I just enjoy the physical side. And because of that, I'm in an area where the competition is phenomenally weak. If I was trying to go into something like retail, which is really hard in my view, that's so tough. Services is so easy by comparison because generally speaking, most people aren't very good at what they do.
No, absolutely. I think in terms of like a desk job, I don't know. I don't know too many people that did it because they wanted to, but I know quite a few did it because they thought that's what they should be doing, and maybe also look at going out and doing your own thing. Oh, it's too hard. I'm not going to try it. But I think you've brought up some fantastic points today. That
there's also a status thing, Matthew, because it's considered that you work with your hand, you're somehow a lesser human being than if you have a white collar job. To me, that's just a ridiculous prejudice. There's so many people, especially young men, I might say, who are so pushed into this academic thing which they're not very suited to, and they can do so much better by getting out there and doing something with their hands, which a lot of them are very good at. You're not very academic, but you're good with your hands. You're good as a mechanic. And the great thing about being a mechanic or a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician, you're not going to run out of work. People are always going to need those things done. You're not going to have your career done away with. So there's always going to be work for you. And it's very much easier to have your own business when you start that kind of thing. You can start part-time, you can just learn how to do it, you can get a low-cost franchise. There's all sorts of ways you can buy a business that's already going, but the goodwill's already there. There's all kinds of ways to get in, which is very easy, and there's no upper limit. I know at least 20 franchisees in gyms who are turning over more than $1 million a year, and that's probably only tip of the iceberg. These are the ones I know about, because and they're not. You look at them and you wouldn't say, "Hey, these guys are Bill Gates and they're so impressive and stuff." They're just ordinary guys, and ladies too sometimes. They're just nice people. They're competent. They work hard, but they love their families and they don't neglect them. It's not that difficult. It really isn't.
Well, I think AI robotics is a fair way away from ever taking over any of those manual labour jobs. So I think those roles are certainly much safer than.
If they could do our jobs, there's nothing that what on earth would humans do? There'd be nothing left for us to do, would there? If you get robots to do the same thing, I think I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Jim, thanks so much for giving us your time today and sharing your thoughts on some of these topics. I hope anyone listening, has learned plenty. I've definitely learned a lot today, and really appreciate that, mate. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Cheers, Jim.